The scientific revolution that led to the splitting of an atom requires a moral revolution as well. We stand here in the middle of this city and force ourselves to imagine the moment the bomb fell.
President Barack Obama today, with appropriately somber and thoughtful reflection, became the first sitting U.S. president to visit Hiroshima. 71 years after the United States dropped a nuclear bomb on the city, President Obama called for a world without nuclear weapons and laid a wreath at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial, a reminder of the weight that comes with being a nuclear superpower, which stands in fairly stark contrast with the current presidential campaign of Donald Trump. Here is infamous college basketball coach and Trump endorser Bobby Knight saying that Trump would be a great president in part because he would be willing to drop a nuclear weapon, just like President Harry Truman.
And Harry Truman, with what he did in dropping and having the guts to drop the bomb in 1944, and here's a man who would do the same thing because he's going to become one of the 4 great presidents of the United States.
Nuclear bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki occurred in 1945, not 44. Then there is Trump himself, who's refused to rule out using nuclear weapons in the Middle East or even in Europe.
Look, nuclear should be off the table, but would there be a time when it could be used? Possibly.
Okay, the trouble is when you said that, can you tell the Middle East we're not using a nuclear weapon?
I would never say that. I would never take any of my cards off the table.
How about Europe? We won't use it in Europe.
I'm not going to take it off the table.
As to the idea of using American policy and leverage to encourage nonproliferation, Trump took a contrarian view, floating the idea of more countries having nuclear weapons.
At some point, we have to say, you know what? We're better off if Japan protects itself against this maniac in North Korea. We're better off, frankly, if South Korea is going to start to protect itself. Wouldn't you rather, in a certain sense, have Japan have nuclear weapons when North Korea has nuclear weapons? And they do have them. They absolutely have them. I would rather see Japan having some form of defense and maybe even offense against North Korea, because we're not pulling the trigger.
During the Cold War, it was understood in this country the biggest responsibility that hung over the American president was they could end life on this planet as we know it if they made the wrong decision. That is still the case. And Donald Trump is now one of 2 people who will have that power. Joining me now, nuclear expert Matthew Bunn, professor of practice at the Harvard Kennedy School. Professor, first let's talk with the significance of an American president visiting Hiroshima for the first time since we became the first and only country to deploy nuclear weapons.
Well, I think it was very symbolically significant. It really sort of brought home the terrifying power of nuclear weapons and the fact that there are still thousands of these nuclear weapons in the world today, most of them much larger than the bomb that obliterated Hiroshima.
There was obviously a period of time in this country in which nuclear weapons were at the forefront of our politics, the forefront of our political debates. The infamous Daisy ad that LBJ ran against Goldwater, basically saying the guy might, annihilate the Earth. That has receded considerably with the demise of the Cold War. But from your perspective, how front of mind should the threat of nuclear weapons and proliferation be?
Well, it's still a significant danger. People sort of thought that the nuclear threat went away when the Cold War went away, but that's not the case. I think people need to be asking the presidential candidates, what is your plan for reducing nuclear dangers? What's your plan for keeping nukes out of the hands of ISIS or Al-Qaeda? What's your plan for dealing with North Korea? What's your plan for tamping down tensions with Russia so we don't get into a potentially nuclear conflict there? These are live issues that are still on the table today.